You know, what is it with people who do these long expose videos on what I only assume they assume are easy targets and just doing terrible jobs at them?
Lack of bitches, maybe?
Oh, hey Fractured Light. I just found this video from a guy named Kumo or something on CarmenRider. It's about half an hour long, but it is very good commentary material. You want to join?
Oh, that video. Yeah, in that case, let's go.
Okay, but you can't be spouting memes throughout the entire commentary like this is a PogCom or something.
Where in the world is Carmen San Diego?
This is what happens when you raise your children on vines.
Now, a quick disclaimer, I shouldn't have to fucking do this at the beginning of my videos.
Wow, I thought Rock Lobster Hero had a stupid looking avatar. I think my favorite part is how we all know this guy sees himself like this, as some strong fighter against the evils of CarmenRider, when, well, he's just another internet tough guy.
Don't worry, you will absolutely understand what we mean as we go through this.
Besides that, he just looks like what a 5-year-old would think a bodybuilder looks like.
He also kinda looks like a Sonichu-esque amalgamation between Killua and Master Ultra Instinct Goku.
But this video and the CarmenRider Crusade video initially are not cancellations of CarmenRider. Please fuck off and stop saying so.
The video where I called someone a pedophile isn't meant to cancel them. Okay. Can I ask what else it would do?
Next thing I wanted to share was one of the creators on this collab did misgender CarmenRider, however they were unaware of CarmenRider's gender identity, and I didn't bother them, make them go back and redo their part because their part was supposed to be fluff in the first place.
That's on you, my guy. It's your responsibility to make sure everybody is aware of what someone's pronouns are, because in the event they get them wrong, they look uninformed at best and downright malicious at worst.
I also want to point out that you made a massive collaboration attempting to show this one person who's boss, and you got people so uninformed that one of them didn't even know the person's gender. That just sounds like a perfect sign of things to come. Oh, also, there's the fact that this is almost certainly an objective lie on Kumo's part. You'll see what we mean when we actually get to that segment.
And let's not pretend you haven't said anything like that in other videos and in tweets. For example, CarmenRider Darkest Hours.
I also did call you a faggot, because I don't like you. I'm not homophobic or transphobic, I just knew that word would set you off.
But Fractured Light, that was all just legitimate CarmenRider discourse, as was this tweet where Kumo says he's coming for CarmenRider's head, and this tweet where he says he wants to shove Carmen's head in an oven. Side note, one of the segments in this video is on how Carmen does not set a good example for her fans. Ignoring what we think about that segment, and trust me, we do have a lot to say on it, just keep in mind this was uploaded to the channel of a man who constantly makes death threats. Are these the good examples Kumo sets for his fans?
The reason I'm including filler and there will be chapters is because this entire video is serious. As was the Crusade, and I had filler.
Oh god fucking damn it, if I wanted filler I'd just watch Naruto, you fucking...
Honestly, imagine watching Naruto after turning 13.
I hope you realize I want your head now.
Person who's under 13 says what?
But I guess I can get his head later since I have a point right now. Kumo, filler isn't some requirement for a serious video. I can't even call it a segment since most segments at least have a point to make. This is just worthless.
In regards to the quote transphobia that I displayed in my Crusade video that makes me a shitty person, I had no control over what that person said.
Just remember this part because it will completely shoot one of these segments in the ass.
I hope you guys are willing to look at this from a more rational perspective, that I was managing a project with 11 people on it, including myself. I had to make sure that I could cover for these guys in editing. I also go to school. I had homework. I had members of CarmenRider's community fucking stalking me, whilst also being paranoid due to Call Me Nil's schizophrenic episodes.
In the rare case you haven't been keeping up with my schedule, I've been more than a little busy the past year. Wake up already. I attended PAX East, EXPCon, Anthrocon, the AVNs, HempCon, and filmed a very elaborate and cerebral ending to the unboxing ring. I released additional Mega 64 videos on top of my personal YouTube workload. Did my YouTube workload, which consists of well-written, thoughtful diatribe every single day. On top of all this workload, I happened to move into a low-cost studio. On top of that, on moving day I get a phone call saying Nana was sick. This meant driving all the way back to Dark Hell Hospital, waiting over an hour to check in, then finding out she's at Mercy Hospital on the complete other side of town. This meant getting back in the Kia, having to completely refill my gas tank, having to go to another gas station because my debit card didn't work, and then finally making it to Mercy Hospital only to find out she had been released an hour earlier. Because of this little complication, many of you already know this did not leave me any time to fix my video capture card. This meant driving 35 miles to Fry's Electronics, finding out my gift cards expired, having to wait for Super Saver shipping to drop it off from Amazon.
I'm not gonna lie to you, he was probably one of the biggest problems I had to deal with.
Yeah, this reeks of damage control.
Also, am I the only one who thinks it's in bad taste to talk about someone's schizophrenia like this? Especially considering you're only mentioning it as an excuse for issues with the video we're about to watch?
Another thing is, after this video, I will be going after Mushroom Girl and Echo Coda and everyone alike, because as shitty of a person as Mushroom Girl would like to paint me, I've been severely wronged here. And though I'm neutral with Neko Coda for the time being, that's only simply because I was looking to say anything that I could to get her to shut up, and none of it was working.
So what you're saying is you just used her to attack CarmenRider. Okay. Also, Neko disowned her involvement with the video shortly after its release, primarily due to Kumo's transphobia. After Kumo released his video on Neko actually reacted to it live on stream before getting into a debate with him through Discord, which can best be described as attempting to watch an unstoppable force meet an immovable object.
I will be going after Neko Coda next. I would like to point out how he's saying this in the same video that he used Coda in.
Yeah, that's another thing. If I were an outside viewer, I wouldn't know why I should watch a video where many of its different participants just hate each other. If I were a fan of Kumo, I would be confused as to why he included somebody that he didn't like, and if I were a fan of Neko, I wouldn't want to continue watching this video because it's made by somebody who hates Neko.
I wasn't at all trying to escape criticism. I needed it to be postponed so that CarmenRider fans and CarmenRider herself didn't see Neko Coda's video and try to use that as a shield. And Neko Coda's claims that they could have used it as a shield, no the fuck they couldn't. They weren't smart enough to come to the conclusions that you came to.
I just want to point out that Neko's video on him calls him out for transphobia, which is the claim he's currently defending himself from. You know, maybe you wouldn't have to worry about people using videos that accuse you of transphobia as a shield if you would just stop putting transphobia in your videos.
Let's pretend they did use it as a shield. Well, I mean, that'd involve having to accept you, Mushrooms, Joe's, and my segments as fine. So really, it'd be beneficial for you. So no, you are kind of trying to run away from this. You're legit trying to damage control criticism away in this disclaimer.
So with that in mind, some of you are going to be bothered by the segments you will see in this video, and you will be bothered by the simple fact that these are things that I already said. But here I am having to redo this video because someone decided to get uppity over words that didn't come out of my mouth. Because someone decided to pull a bunch of critiques out of their ass based on a bunch of misconceptions. And there will be another segment discussing Class Edgelord. However, when you're done here, you should watch the Commentary Crusade video, as the Class Edgelord segment on there is much more in-depth and much more valuable.
Much more valuable. I'd like to point out this video hasn't even started, and yet Kumo has already talked shit about 2 of the segments within this video. Kumo is the team player, guys. Kumo's gonna save Western society from the evil of big tit physics. No, I'm not kidding. One of the segments actually talks about big tit physics.
I know we're just kind of talking about what's going to come later as opposed to actually waiting for them to come up, but that's because this is one of the worst videos either of us have seen, and we're just trying to delay the inevitable as much as possible.
There's no escape!
Because intelligent individuals like Neko Koda herself need me to connect the dots for you, we're discussing Class Edgelord because he's a prominent example that there are more people like Carmen, and he's a prominent example of the type of people Carmen harbors in her community.
If you don't want to have to connect the dots for people, then connect them yourself in the original video, you triangular prism. Then all the questions will be gone.
Without further ado, the video will begin.
And now, our feature presentation.
Hi, my name is
CarmenRider.
Let's get straight to the bullshit. CarmenRider is a commentary channel with the IQ of a crisp packet. They have such classics as Raven Pines overreacts to porn and the ridiculous nature of anti-lollies. And let me be honest about what I think of lollies. If you like lollies, you are a pedophile.
Well, not according to the DSM-5, which I've actually read. Although, we'll get more into that when we get to a person who can actually be bothered to explain his points.
Oh, joyous day, here we go!
Now, I know I shouldn't be throwing such a phrase around like it's an everyday word, but let me read to you what the definition of lollies are. Lollies most often refers to a young or young-looking character in Japanese anime and manga. You are a sick person if you like this or even get like turned on to this shit.
That's all Nae says about Lolly. I know you can infer it yourself, but I love how he forgot to mention that she was defending lolicon, which is specifically lollies put in pornographic situations, and not just lollies themselves.
Honestly, the fact that he says so little annoys the fuck out of me. He just says CarmenRider likes lolicon, therefore she's a pedophile, and that's it. Meanwhile, he only gives the definition of lollies in the sense that they're characters who are both female and prepubescent. So Carmen is a pedophile because she defends anime pictures of prepubescent girls? As Fractured pointed out, he doesn't even mention the pornographic context of lolicon, so this point is likely to just leave you confused if you're unfamiliar with the situation.
I know Kumo goes more in depth, and oh, trust me, so will we, but if you've got this little to say, then maybe cut it. Since, I don't know about you, but you should back up a claim like that instead of just assuming we agree with you.
For the record, we do understand that Kumu did begin this video by saying he'd have filler. However, even ignoring the fact that we both believe that was a bad idea, that still doesn't change the fact that this filler is just so empty. Why even include this when there's a segment immediately after essentially making the same points but in greater detail? It just makes this video come off as redundant.
Let's look at what else they've said and done. Hopefully she hasn't said anything dumb on Twitter. Oh wait, she's retarded. Carmen, you can literally have an addiction to anything, even fucking Fortnite for fuck's sake. Let's look at what else they've said. I refuse to lose. Huh. Well, it looks like you lost.
Pacing is indeed my passion. Yeah, Naze goes over these so briefly that I don't even think it was worth bringing up. I know Naze had a tough job, the intro section always sucks to do, but this really could have been fine-tuned.
I just hate how abrupt the ending is. It's like hitting a brick wall while going 70 miles an hour. Naze's segment ends so fast, the first time I watched it, I honestly didn't even realize we were in a different segment at first because it feels like his segment ends in the middle of his own point. Seriously, what did we as viewers get from watching Naze's segment? We learned CarmenRider defends lolicon, we've learned Naze doesn't like it, and we've learned that Naze thinks one tweet from Carmen is stupid. Even ignoring the fact that one of those three things is going to be mentioned elsewhere in the video, why do we need to know the other two? This is supposed to be some giant expose, but his segment basically came down to him saying, I think this person is stupid, for about, what was that, a minute?
Oh, here we go again. I have to explain to you why CarmenRider's a pedo, don't I? I'm getting really tired of breaking this down for people, so I'm just gonna go ahead and make sure I can reuse this at any point if I ever need it. First, we're gonna figure out what the definition of pedophile is and what it means. First off, definition of pedophilia. Sexual perversion in which children are the preferred sexual object, specifically a psychiatric disorder in which an adult has sexual fantasies about or engages in sexual acts with prepubescent children. Phile. A person who is sexually attracted to children.
Oh great, the Google definition that would make a 13-year-old attracted to a 15-year-old a paedophile because the 15-year-old's a child.
If you can't tell, I think this definition sucks.
I know he has another one, but surprise to absolutely no one, anything that has the job of describing a mental disorder in a single sentence is going to be simplified to the point of unusability.
Let's actually compare this to what the DSM-5 says about pedophilia, which, as you would expect, is quite a bit more complicated. For example, it has to be recurring over a period of at least 6 months, and the person must either act on these urges or have, quote, marked distress or interpersonal difficulty as a result of them. Do you have evidence Carmen falls under either of these things mentioned? If not, you cannot call her a pedophile under the actual definition.
Alright, so next we're going to explain to you what lolicon is.
Wasn't that what the last guy was supposed to do?
Oh come on, we both know there was no communication. These feel like different videos spliced together to create a Frankenstein's monster.
Seriously, Kiwi, if you want to mindlessly splice videos together, at least do something cool like fake a world record speedrun of Super Mario 64.
The L is way too real for that.
Specifically the subcategory having to do with porn. Lolicon, or lolly in quotes, is a type of animation popular in Japan that depicts underage female cartoon characters engaged in sexual situations. Now this definition uses the term underage female cartoon characters, which can be harmful as how vague it is, could mislead someone to think that like a 16-year-old character in an anime could be lolly if it gets sexualized. However, I'm pretty sure we all mutually agree that we're more concerned about the cases of, toddlers and like 3rd graders, like 6-year-olds and stuff, and 12-year-olds, like little tiny children that are underdeveloped. Now, this is how it relates to CarmenRider. CarmenRider has expressed that they get off to this. They're very open about how they get off to it. They've made it very apparent that they're sexually attracted to this. Whether insinuating or openly stating in videos, or insinuating or openly stating in DMs or servers on Discord. And I wouldn't even be surprised if at any point back when Carmen was still on Twitter, if they even shared it on their Twitter page.
Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if Kumo-san kissed snails in his free time.
I mean, we have all this evidence that he already does this. Now, do not ask us where this evidence is because we don't have it on hand, but it's really easy to find, and if you just look at it, you'll find we are correct. But seriously, let's think about what he said for a second. So there's all this evidence that CarmenRider loves lolicon. Where is it exactly? Why don't you show it instead of just saying it exists and expecting us to take your word for it? I wouldn't even be so annoyed with this if you didn't go out of your way to say that there's all this evidence, none of which you've shown during this video. Then you expand this to saying that you wouldn't be surprised if more evidence existed on a platform she no longer uses. Okay, what does that have to do with anything? You're basically just saying maybe more proof exists somewhere out there that I'm right.
To add on, one of his examples is the video she made defending the concepts of lolicon, but last I checked, the only indicator that she likes it is when she says she's into size play, which might not even mean she's into lolly. Now, I know you're about to show something, but if I may be so blunt, if someone sees what looks like baseless allegations, how long do you think they're gonna stick around before passing you by and therefore missing the evidence?
I mean, do you think I'd still be watching this video if it weren't for this co-op?
I should note that Carmen loves to demonize this argument or any similar arguments. Carmen also likes to blow things out of proportion and gaslight, claiming that the analogies people use to better explain this case are just logical fallacies and claiming that people are just strawmanning.
Such great gaslighting, CarmenRider. I didn't give you enough credit calling things logical fallacies and strawmen.
Anyway, to actually debunk this, that's not what gaslighting is. For those unaware, the term gaslighting comes from a 1938 play called Gaslight, where a man attempts to psychologically abuse his wife through lying to her about reality in order to make her think she has gone insane, including lying to her about the gas power lights not dimming when they so obviously are. The point of doing this was to increase psychological dependence upon him, which is what gaslighting is actually about. It's about taking away someone's ability to think independently through causing a person to think you're the only source of truth. is Carmen doing this? Because if not, then it is not, by definition, gaslighting.
I'm guessing you once again looked up some vague Google definition of gaslighting, which gave you a result so vague that it could apply to a whole lot of things.
Actually, Light, what is the Google definition of gaslighting?
To manipulate someone by psychological means into doubting their own sanity.
Well, first off, the word manipulate is incredibly vague in this context. To quote Tom Hartman, specifically in the form of his 2008 book, Cracking the Code, we all manipulate all the time. It's how we accomplish everything. If you're hungry, you can manipulate an entire multi-billion-dollar industry by offering a few dollars to a clerk in a fast food restaurant. The result of that manipulation is that you get fed. You manipulate your partner into being your partner, your friends into being your friends, and your pet onto your lap. The people who don't manipulate are those who are dead. Even Google acknowledges how vague the word manipulate is, hence why they have two definitions, one with 2 extra bullet points and one with 1 extra bullet point. This definition also leaves out the fact that it has to be based on a lie and it has to increase power on the person who's committing the gaslighting. If I go to a psychologist and they determine I have a mental illness that's causing me to lose my grip on reality, that's not gaslighting, even though the person is trying to convince me I'm insane.
I mean, depending on how far you stretch it, which, mind you, Kumo stretches it about this far, debating could be considered gaslighting by this super vague definition because you're actually trying to get someone to change their stance on something and doubt their own position. This is actually something I noticed. Kumo and his collab partners throw out these terminologies like pedophile, gaslighter, etc. without really understanding what they're saying, pushing the allegations just a little bit further so that they're more believable, because I mean, they look fine enough if you use things that, once again, have to summarize entire psychological concepts into a single sentence.
We should note, we're not saying that there's anything wrong with using these definitions as a quick reference, but they are where research starts, not where it ends. If Kumo was using this as a gateway to do a more in-depth explanation of these concepts, that would be fine. But that's not what he's doing. He's just flashing the definitions on the screen and calling it a day.
Now, the very next thing I wanted to show you guys was Carmen admitting that they're a pedo. Well, as Carmen herself says it, they would never openly admit to it. I'm against CP of any kind, fictional or not. It's not CP, so it's okay to jack off to CP if it isn't a real child. Yeah, it doesn't hurt real children. However, you're still jacking off to kids, though. Why are you suddenly surprised about my stance on lolly/Shota? This isn't some sort of well-kept secret. Wait, you don't jack off to kids? Just lolly? No, I don't jack off to kids. Just lolly and Shota. I think lolly is disgusting, but phew. Do you fucking honestly think I would openly admit to being a pedophile?
For the record, I would love to check the context of this conversation, but I can't because the server this conversation occurred in was raided and everything in it was deleted. And yes, this raid happened before Kiwi's video came out, and the person who did it said it was for him, so I know for a fact that he knows about it.
Mind you, we're not saying he did the raid, that'd be Dom. We're just saying he should know about it, and therefore he should know that we have to be skeptical of anything that comes from Carmen's server because that can no longer be checked.
We should also note that according to any form of non-armchair psychology, nothing in this conversation would be evidence that CarmenRider is a pedophile.
To be honest, if you'd have left it at she likes lolicon, you'd actually have a better point, because I don't know about you, but I find that questionable on its own, and if someone's bad, you don't need to exaggerate.
So there you go, that's just one of the many examples you can find of Carmen sharing that they consume this content and they get their rocks off to it. And just so you guys know, if you're willing to sit through the torture of what is a CarmenRider video, there's a couple videos on her channel up to this date that actually have her, verbally expressing. One last thing I want to touch upon in this segment before it ends. Septi's going to go further into depth into this.
So basically you're doing a naze. Nope, not putting up with it again.
By the way, he spends the next 2 minutes saying that calling pictures pixels is gaslighting because of some normalization argument that neither me nor my co-op partner could make heads or tails of.
Hey ho, ladies with dicks.
This is a furry!
This is Septi, and let's get straight to the point. CarmenRider is a notorious small commentary channel who actually has a terrible impact on her young and impressionable audience.
Do you have any evidence that Carmen's audience is young? Because otherwise, this just seems like another unfounded assumption.
I don't see anything wrong with Septi's first example, so I'll just skip it, but I'd like to just play one clip.
Notable example would be the DB Oranges feud. Oranges made a video calling out Carmen for labeling Kai Weiss as a manipulative suicide baiter for having an episodic meltdown on Twitter, when suicide baiting means malicious encouragement of suicide, but whatever, research is overrated.
I love how this can be in the same video as people who think that research for psychological disorders is looking at a Google definition.
What's worse is this line of toxic behavior is reflected on her audience members as well, since they catch on to her awful perceptions.
Neat and Sylveon are your examples? I'd like to point out Neat is pretty public about being at the absolute earliest in his 20s. In fact, I know Edgelord had his own section, and last I checked, Edgelord too is in his 20s. Yet, Carmen fans are supposed to be young when 2/3 of your examples are in their 20s. Got it.
Mind you, Sylveon is 16, so I'll let you guys decide if it's misleading or not to call him young and impressionable, but the overall framing just does not line up with the evidence. When I hear young and impressionable, I think someone who's at oldest 13 or so. I don't expect your youngest example to be somebody who can legally drive a car on his own in the United States and is at the age of consent in his home country of the United Kingdom.
Additionally, you use these two as examples of how Carmen rubs off on her audience, but you don't provide any evidence or examples of Sylveon only holding these beliefs once he found CarmenRider. Because last I checked, Sylveon was against Kai before he found Carmen, and the same goes for Neat. In fact, Carmen straight up cut off Neat, so why he's an example I have absolutely no idea. To add on, how do you even measure the influence of watching Carmen on people? I know you showed someone spamming dislike in Kumo's comments, but Carmen in her videos discourages harassment and attacking of her targets. That goes double for Sylveon and Neat, by the way, because the thing that they're known for is harassing Doodle.
Yeah, in fact, if I remember correctly, Neat and Sylveon both found Carmen because of opinions Carmen shared they already had. I know it was Lolicon in Sylveon's case, and I think it was general pornography in Neat's case. So is Carmen influencing people before she even meets them? Because that's quite a massive claim. Oh, and there's the very important fact that Carmen's cut ties with both Neat and Sylveon. In fact, she did so over a month before this video came out.
And before you make the excuse that she didn't send anyone to harass any of the people she talked about, how about this community post where she is directly ordering her audience to go and harass the YouTube staff? Because she lost her monetization due to a 9/11 meme, asking them to tweet, email, phone call, and overall relentlessly try to force YouTube to give her partner program back, basically enforcing harassment.
Okay, first off, this thing you've blessed us with. I mean, even if this was true, that doesn't mean shit when that just means that they agree with you. That's not controlling them, that's them deciding to do something you'd agree to, which, once more, CarmenRider doesn't support harassment.
I should also note, this video was uploaded on Kangaroo's channel less than a week after one of his fans raided Carmen's server, as mentioned before. Now, Kiwi denied responsibility, but the fact is that the person was a fan of his. So, can he control his fans, or can't he? Personally, I have the crazy idea that people are responsible for the actions of themselves and nobody else. So I don't expect Kumo to stop a raid done by one of his fans. I do expect him to not hold Carmen responsible for the actions of one of her fans.
Even if this did mean something, what about common ideologies that she hasn't presented on her channel? For example, CarmenRider hasn't mentioned opinions on things like, say, veganism, so would it be her fault if someone in her fanbase went out of their way to attack a vegan? Or say, ideologies that differ between her and her fans. What if certain fans agree to some of her perspectives but not other perspectives? As for your audio point, that just boils down to leave the multi-billion-dollar company alone.
I should also note, All Carmen did was ask her fans to ask YouTube for her monetization back. All she is doing is asking her fans to ask YouTube to reconsider. Tell me, Septi, are petitions harassment now?
A worse recurring example of her badly influencing her audience is the lack of understanding of the term she's using on a regular basis. A good example of that is labeling all of her critics as detractors. Detraction means lessening someone's reputation and esteem via envious, malicious, or petty criticism. In other words, she's portraying the critique she's receiving as wicked defamation campaigns.
You know that's detraction and not detractors, right? Because the definition of detractor is someone who criticizes something or someone, often unfairly. I know this definition contains often unfairly, but 1, that's often and not always, and 2, I mean, given how often she covers people who cover her, I mean, she could just think detractor is an accurate term. That's a more fair way of looking at it, since you're not reading the worst into her if you look at it that way.
Also, where would anyone get the idea that the people who constantly call her a pedophile without evidence are smearing her? I can't figure that out for the life of me.
And secondly, the lolicon debacle. While I made it quite clear that I personally don't think Carmen is a pedophile, as the term chronophilia or age fetishism is a more accurate phrase to describe her,
Chronophilia has to be one of the most useless terms I've come across. It's effectively just saying you're attracted to a specific age range, which, I mean, yeah, most people are. In fact, someone not being attracted to a specific age range is better pedophilia evidence than anything that's been come up with so far.
it's an undeniable fact that Carmen is a die-hard defendant of the creation and distribution of the obscene material that is lolicon. Her only defense to this is the usual, drawings cannot hurt real children, and the infamous,
just because something is illegal doesn't mean it's immoral.
Okay, but like, she isn't entirely wrong though. It's illegal is not a substantial moral argument. A substantial legal one, of course, but not a moral one. Let me throw you a quick example. Mind you, I don't want to say these are relative because they are not even close. But 69 countries in the world say it's illegal to be gay. Something I'm sure you'd take issue with.
I also want to point out, Septi's going to basically attempt to argue that law is the same as morality, which isn't how anything works. What happens when something is made illegal? Does that action go from moral to immoral overnight? What happens if a law is repealed? Does that action go from immoral to moral overnight? For that matter, most laws aren't enacted as soon as they're passed. So, what happens if there's a law against something but it won't be enacted until months later? Is the action both immoral because it's against the law, but also moral because it's not illegal yet?
Also, additional question, what about laws that are different across different places? Does it suddenly become immoral depending on where you live? As an example, polygamy is illegal in many places, but not in others. Is it moral only in those locations, moral in all locations, or moral in none?
This may sound like we're looking way too deep into this one point, but this is the issue with moral relativism more generally. It cannot tell you what is or is not immoral, it can only tell you what is and isn't taboo. Although, we'll get more into this as we go on, because trust me, we have a lot to say about Septi's moral system.
an all-around delusional way of seeing things, as no one ever claimed it's hurting real children. But it being immoral is not an opinion, it's an objective fact.
First off, it's good to see that we have a totalitarian in this video. Also, I take back what I said about Septi being a relativist. He's more in line with a nationalistic absolutist. Either way, regardless of what moral system he has, it's a, to be blunt, very disturbing one. I will note, your definition says things are immoral if they're, quote, outside of society's standards of what is acceptable. Even ignoring the many terrible things that have been acceptable in societies, and the many terrible things that are acceptable in societies today, that still wouldn't prove that something being immoral is, quote, an objective fact. The standards of society are determined by the subjective feelings of the people who live in it. In fact, it's funny that this conversation is about pedophilia because societies exist where pedophilia is seen as acceptable. For example, many Islamic societies see no issue with it. Muhammad himself had wives who he married before they were 10. Tell me, would you be fighting against pedophilia if you lived in those societies? Personally, I believe pedophilia to be immoral regardless of where it's happening or when it occurred, because I have a consistent moral framework which allows me to view things as right or wrong. If this video is any indication, Septi does not have that.
I know she didn't know what would be in this section, but I've got a little something you should have learned from one of your co-op partners.
Arguments surrounding lolicon and pedophilia usually get people very emotionally riled up, obviously for good reason. However, you still need to make good points against the concepts of lolicon and pedophilia, and you can't just call it gross and move on.
Like, look, I do agree with you, I think a lot of people do, but you're not gonna convince anyone on the inherently subjective nature of morality by going, this is bad, fact, cause it's illegal. Why is it illegal, Septi? Because if the answer's what I think it is, then that's just circular.
Yeah, that's another thing. This doesn't actually explain why lolicon is wrong, it just moves the goalpost. Even ignoring the fact that it is not illegal everywhere in the world, you've just changed the question of the skeptic from why is it immoral to why is it illegal.
Under federal law, lolicon has been declared as child exploitation material and it is classified as illegal child pornography. This law, which you think is nothing more but unnecessary censorship, was born for the same reason that made it illegal to promote hate speech ideologies.
I should note, even ignoring countries that have freedom of speech, hate speech ideologies are not illegal everywhere. In fact, some countries almost mandate it. In Uganda, for example, it is illegal to mention homosexuality in a positive light. Same with Russia. In fact, in Uganda, an anti-homosexuality pastor was arrested for his speeches being so graphic that people thought he was trying to promote homosexuality.
And that is because there is an unspoken and unnamed psychological boundary that should not be crossed. The truth is, there are certain things that should remain taboo subjects. Not because we cannot question its basis of reality or because we are too primitive, but because questioning certain things is harmful. And indeed, what you preach every day can be harmful, Carmen. What you're doing is encouraging your audience to break the law and be listed as sex offenders, just to rebel against the system.
We'll ignore your highly authoritarian ideology for a second and instead just point out this is another distortion. Carmen has never encouraged her audience to look at lolicon. She has just said that she encourages them to not think looking at it is immoral. I don't think watching Aqua Teen Hunger Force is immoral, but I don't personally watch it.
Additionally, when questioning why is it illegal and why shouldn't we question it, you say there's a boundary we shouldn't cross, which, okay, that's just a glorified way of saying it's immoral. You're citing the law to call something immoral and citing the immorality to explain why it's illegal, which doesn't actually get us any closer to the answer, because we're just running around in circles. Oh well, I can sum it up in this image.
If you don't want to take my word for it, here's an actual lawyer explaining it for you.
No, I am not doing this shit again. It's already explained why this doesn't even matter. Eat cardboard.
Her logic to why it wasn't a harmless outlet was because it was easier to find than actual CP, it won't get you in much trouble, and lolicons are more accepted in society than people who hurt real children. Which, as you can see, doesn't explain the issue in the slightest. If anything, the first one is kind of a good thing.
Oh, stop it. She said it was a good thing that drawn CP can be found easier than the CP that requires child abuse to even create it, which would reduce the amount of CP by making it a more difficult area to get anything from. Ephraim explained this in another video, but I'm gonna abridge it a little bit for him. CP causes active harm because it requires CSA to create. Lolicon causes passive harm. Therein, the one that causes active harm would be worse.
You can keep beating it to lolicon for all I care, so long you keep it private, but you need to stop making excuses for child exploitation materials.
So you are fine with her doing something that you see as immoral. For that matter, if you have no issue with her doing it, then why have you spent so long talking about it and calling her bad for engaging in it? That just doesn't make any sense.
For your and everyone's sake in your audience, don't do it. Think responsibly, or this will be your downfall. That is all I have to say about this. Thanks for having me on this, Kumo. I'm Septi, and goodbye.
Yes, bye. Don't come back in this video. Please don't let the door hit you on the way out.
Yo, what's up? It's your boy Recycled Intro Format, and Kumo asked me to have a wee look at CarmenRider's channel. The first video which caught my eye for all the right reasons is the ridiculous nature of anti-lollies.
Hello again, CarmenRider here.
And Virgo here back for another commentary.
So off the bat we have a schizophrenic person who believes that they are in fact a little anime girl, and not in fact a 22-year-old man built like one of the thumb people from Spy Kids.
Man, I hate it when I slip on a banana peel and then call people schizophrenic delusional men. Happens all the time, it's so sad. Then I get weird looks because people think I'm talking to the banana when in fact, I'm on my mobile phone yelling at women over the internet because me falling on my ass is the closest I'll ever get to touching grass in my lifetime. Which actually might be sadder than the banana peel, I'll let you decide.
Yes, this is the segment that Kumquat said at the start was made by somebody who didn't know Carmen's gender identity, and as such, the person in question accidentally misgenders her. Keep in mind, we're supposed to believe that all of this is a mere misunderstanding and not intentional transphobia, because I'm going to be blunt, I really do not buy that unless this person is incredibly oblivious.
And their OC side character, who is probably a shadow person speaking through the AI. And the huge cartoon boobies on the screen are definitely not distracting or weird at all.
You're not funny. Also, the only people—
I mean, what are these physics? Your arms are going under the breasts. What is this? Is this meant to be visually stimulating? Am I meant to be getting my rocks off to this? It's abundantly clear that you are a man using a pitch shifter. Yet you want me to take you seriously as a anime girl with a huge bazooka rack.
Remember guys, he didn't know, I swear.
So it's the boob physics.
For the record, there's nothing more to this segment. It's just a Leafy clone calling Carmen a delusional man. But remember, he didn't know she was trans.
Was this Vortex's fault too?
While also talking about Carmen's boobs. We're just skipping the rest of this segment, not just because it's horribly transphobic, although it is, but also because it's just really fucking boring seeing one person repeat the same point time after time for multiple minutes.
We're also skipping the next segment because it's actually funny. It's the segment on Class Edgelord, and while Neat and Sylveon would be better examples of bad Carmen fans, and despite how much of this segment is more filler than the actual filler, Edgelord's a little weird and that's how Oranges calls him, and again, his segment's actually mostly okay. On to the next segment. Oh god, it's Coda.
Greetings everyone, it's your favorite lady with a dick here, Neko Coda.
Ah, fuck, it's you.
From the logging again.
Okay, for those who don't know, after my 10th commentary, you know, the one on Neko's video on Carmen where she called Carmen a pedophile because of childlike features, yeah, you remember, Neko commented saying, quote, "You really gonna mention me in every other video? Jesus, that's A-log behavior." This response was then mocked by JustTube Stuff, Avi Haltman, Toganium, Umbrus, Sean S., Azoff101, Fractured Light, Agent of Hydra, and even Sylveon. This, ladies and gentlemen, is the unity the establishment fears. For those curious, my favorite comment in this thread is this one from Azoff101. Seriously, pause the video and read it, it's hilarious. Mind you, Coda never actually responded to anything I said in the video. All she did was make vague references to me cutting context and arguing in bad faith. And as I said in response to her saying that, "Bro, you didn't give me the benefit of the doubt while I was calling someone a pedophile." Yeah, that's how people tend to respond to accusations like this that are utterly laughable. I should also note, for me to be A-logging Neko Coda, I would not only need to be obsessively and exclusively going after her, as A-log did with Chris-chan, and by the way, I am not doing that. Check my channel, the majority of my commentaries are on people who are notable for not being Neko Coda, but I would also have to be doing things like threatening violence upon you, telling you to kill yourself, or saying that you are worse than Saddam Hussein during the Gulf War. I am not kidding, A-log actually said that. Now, again, I have never once done this, so this comparison is utterly nonsensical. Now, I have no plans of covering Neko again after this video. However, a situation might arise where she'd be a good candidate for a commentary again, so I will make Neko a deal right now. If she stops telling lies about other people, I'll stop telling the truth about her. As for this video, we should note that Neko disowned her involvement with it, but she never actually disowned the segment, best as we could tell. She just disowned involvement with Kumo because he's a transphobe. So, we consider this fair game because Neko still believes everything she said here.
If you know me, you'll know I made a 4-part series on CarmenRider. If you
This is definitely a really good video with original points that I did not make.
You totally could have shown some examples instead of just saying it. Like, yeah, imagine backstabbing the person you're working with in the same video. That totally doesn't devalue the video you're trying to use to get people to cancel. I mean, be aware of CarmenRider's pedophilia.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. If I was someone who had never heard of Carmen before watching this video, I would be wondering why I should take the word of a plagiarist seriously, because that's what Kumo is accusing Neko of. For that matter, what exactly is the point of inviting someone to your video in the first place if you're just going to insult them like this? This would be like me inviting Toga to come on the video only for me to insult him for his voice.
Man.
Oh, also, this coughing shit is really annoying and stupid.
Okay, that's more like
If you
it.
haven't seen it, you should probably go watch it. The point of this series was to demonstrate the picture she has painted of herself, and why people have reason to see her as a bad person.
For those of you who want to get into debate, the phrase people have reason to believe something is one of the biggest red flags of the person you're arguing with is being a tad weaselly. Of course people have reason to believe everything they believe. Nobody believes things for no reason. Even people who believe incorrect and insane things believe those things for reasons. The question should not be if people have reasons, the question should be if those reasons are correct.
Fun fact, it was actually almost going to be 5 parts long. The 5th video I was going to be covering is called Ripping the Document, where Carmen responds to a Google Doc criticizing her. I feel it's interesting, mainly because it shows Carmen's response to criticism and how she handles it.
Yeah, I think I know the document you're talking about. Didn't it call her a racist, a transphobe, a pedophile, and a bunch of other shit?
You know, I have a copy of the document so I can read you some of the claims. Racism, transphobia, toxicity, creepy behavior. Tried to pin blame on CarmenRider for porn of a minor's OC being made by 2 of her fans and the harassment of said minor with it. But according to Septi, you control your fanbase, so maybe the doc might be a bit better than I gave it credit for.
To give you all an idea of how bad this document is, Oranges had his video cited in it. Oranges is the person who made the Class Edgelord segment we skipped, and he demanded it be removed because he did not want to associate with the claims made in it because they make absolutely no sense.
By the way, a bit of a side note that didn't make it into the original script, but the version of the document that I was given still had Oranges in, so it was copied before Orange's video was removed. I would also like to say, if I'm remembering correctly, though correct me on this one if I'm wrong, because I don't actually know, I'm pretty sure my video is in there too, and I too asked for my video to be removed. Whether that happened or not, I have no idea.
Actually, let's take a look at the bibliography, the important videos in a bit more detail. Now remember, 2 of the people listed here actively asked for their credits to be removed. But there are still just so many other issues with these sources alone. For example, the first source is 3 videos by Classical Disso, aka Fry, aka the person who made this document, meaning he's literally citing himself. And by the way, all 3 videos are gone now. We have 2 videos by Mushroom Girl, including the one I did a one-shot on because of the part where she says that child sexual abuse victims become pedophiles. Other parts I did not show you include her saying that it's okay to violate constitutional rights in the name of protecting children, as well as the fact that her thumbnail shows her in a shirt that says "Kill all lolicons." Couple that with what she considers to cause pedophilia, and you can see the issue. There's 2 videos from Night Tie-Dye, don't really feel like I need to say why that's a bit of an issue. A stream from Dulu, which you did not even embed properly, and which is gone now. A video from Lunatic the Games, who wasn't even credited, so it's just a hanging video, essentially. This document is terrible on every level, is my point.
When such serious claims are thrown in, it no longer becomes reasonable criticism, they become allegations. Some of these allegations, by the way, could legitimately ruin someone's life. Of course she's not going to take kindly to it.
She doesn't try to find any middle ground.
Where is the middle ground in pedophilia claims? Is Carmen somehow half a pedophile or something?
She doesn't try to understand the opposition. It's her way or the highway. She makes so many arguments that can be debunked in a thought. Carmen always assumes she's 100% right.
Who assumes they're wrong exactly? Do you? Do you have a large number of beliefs that you consider wrong? If so, why do you hold them? Obviously, nobody should think they've always been right, but in general, most people do believe they are correct about all the views they currently hold. That is why they hold them.
To be nice and throw Coda a bone, perhaps she meant that Carmen is not open to being wrong, but her wording was so far off that if that is what she meant, she ended up saying something totally different.
Honestly, at times, this behavior can only be chalked up to Carmen being delusional. I'm gonna make a few rapid-fire points against the video to demonstrate my point, and if I can't show the full clip, I'll just put a timestamp on screen so you can all check it out yourself. Carmen does a lot of deflection in this video. Instead of addressing the point, she'll point to someone else and say, look, they're bad too, when in reality, that really doesn't debunk a thing.
The Kai Weiss drama. Yep, these motherfuckers really be defending Kai. You know, the Kai who beat his girlfriend. CarmenRider also defends Shadman, even though Shadman is a pedophile who draws porn of minors and thirsts over minors. Fry, you got this info from a Turkey Tom video. Last time Turkey Tom did a video about pedophilia was fucking horrible.
Questioning of sources deflection now? I can't imagine how you got through school history. I'm just picturing it in my head that the teacher brought up how you could question a source and how maybe a source wasn't accurate because of who it came from, and then you followed up by telling them they were deflecting. I don't know why, that sounds really funny.
Yeah, I'm near certain that if I got a claim about transgender people from a transphobic website like Fourth Wave Now or Transgender Trend, Neko Koda would call me out on that. Would that be her deflecting? Well, obviously not. It's an unreliable source, and it should be discussed as such.
Yeah, I have nothing to say to Fry. He legit called me a pedophile to other people when he knows damn well I'm not. I've told him and many others that I am not attracted to real children.
What is she deflecting from exactly? This clip is so far out of context that it could be responding to anything. Plenty of things it could be responding to, and it wouldn't be deflection. Let me bring up just one example. What if she's being demonized for not wanting to talk to Fry? Because then she's just making a point about why she didn't want to talk to Fry.
This is especially frustrating because Fry was the person who made the document in the first place. Again, the one that calls her a racist, transphobic pedophile. Would Neko want to talk to someone who had previously levied such terrible accusations against her?
In fact, since Coda made me dig the original clip up, would you like some additional context that could assist the point?
For a more recent example of Carmen's behavior towards Disso, here was a group chat that was solely created by Edge in order to get Disso and Carmen to understand each other's views. Yeah, I have nothing to say to Fry. He legit called me a pedophile to other people when he knows damn well I'm not. I've told him and many others that I am not attracted to real children. But whatever, it's not like Fry is friends with a self-admitted pedophile himself. Oh wait!
That's just calling out double standards, since if Fry's gonna have issues with a pedophile, why is he friends with one?
By the way, Neko doesn't actually explain what any of these deflections are. She just plays the clip and hopes they're self-explanatory, meaning the viewer has to guess as to what the deflection even is. And considering Neko seems to have no idea what a deflection actually is, this is usually like an Easter egg hunt without any Easter eggs.
Okay, firstly, that's not racist. Secondly, Shannon is racist herself.
Well, guess I better go delete my video defending you, Carmen, cause you know I can't be caught dead defending a lolicon, now can I? Even though my video defending you really didn't defend your stances on lolicon, you know, I can't really be associated with that in any way, you know, because otherwise, you know, I'm just as bad, right? Right?
Which was said where? I guess in the first clip, yeah, I mean, I'll give you that. But if you were gonna do that, at least move the Kai clip to the end so that it makes more sense. Like, here, I'll do it for you and you'll see what I mean.
The Kai Weiss drama. Yep, these motherfuckers really be defending Kai. You know, the Kai who beat his girlfriend.
Well, guess I better go delete my video defending you, Carmen, cause you know I can't be caught dead defending a lolicon now, can I? Even though my video defending you really didn't defend your stances on lolicon, you know, I can't really be associated with that in any way, you know, because otherwise, you know, I'm just as bad, right? Right?
I should note, I think this might have been in reference to Carmen calling Creepshow art racist, in which case, the same point Fraction made about double standards applies here. Also, man, do I love sarcasm that is drawn out, especially in comparison to sarcasm that is quick and to the point. Honestly, the funniest thing about a joke is when it goes on forever, way past the point any reasonable person would enjoy it. I cannot stress enough how enjoyable I find humor that takes more time to be said than it honestly should. I am a fan of comedic material that could be said in only a fraction of the time that it is actually said in, therefore dragging it out longer than needed.
Honestly, why say one word when 50 works just fine?
Also, we see throughout this video that Carmen doesn't make any attempt to understand the opposing side and always assumes she's fully in the right. A prime example is when she talked about talking to somebody named Mystic Mongrel and mentioned that she was a true scum, and was shocked and appalled that that person didn't want to keep talking to her after she said she subscribed to a transphobic ideology.
So I mentioned this one time this person called me a slur because I was a Truscum. And that's when the High Guardian spice hit the fan. As you can see, I was trying to be nice and diffuse the conversation so it wouldn't turn out bad. But no, she wasn't having that because she doesn't exactly respond well to transphobic ideals. I wanted to be nice and move on, but no. Why move on, agree to disagree, and find a middle ground?
Remember when Coda said she never tries to find a middle ground? I ask you, dear viewers, what the hell is that?
Getting pissy is so much easier.
God fucking damn it, all I did was tell my Jewish friend I was a Nazi. Why can't we just agree to disagree? So much for the tolerant left.
Ah shit, back it up, the Neko-Coda comparisons are back.
For the record, I'm not a trans medicalist personally, but comparing them to Nazis is just confusing. If only because no transgender person has ever been killed by a trans medicalist. Meanwhile, I don't know how aware you are of history, Neko, but Nazis have killed Jews before.
Even if she didn't agree that true scums were transphobic, which they are, their ideology is based on invalidating trans folk, more specifically non-binary folk, she wasn't even willing to see why someone wouldn't want to keep talking to somebody who they believed held a transphobic ideology.
Maybe because the person in question never actually gave any reasons. Actually reading the conversation, the person just kind of yelled at Carmen, called her a traitor at one point, compared her to a racist, and then left. What was there to understand exactly?
There's also a number of points where she doesn't elaborate and just makes a point that boils down to, yeah, I'm right.
Okay, firstly, that's not racist. Secondly, Shannon is racist herself, and this is where you get their creepy behaviors and disturbing opinions. Yeah, go ahead, watch them. Your opinion won't change, trust me. She continues to imply that I'm a pedo afterwards, and then I said this. Now you can see that I'm obviously not in the wrong for this.
Well, yeah, of course if you play the last sentence of a point that, by your own timestamp, was about 3 minutes long, it's actually close to 5. Neko got the time of the clip starting wrong by about a minute and a half. It's going to look like she didn't explain anything. This would be like me saying a book didn't elaborate because of an unexplained concept in the last chapter. For those curious, here is the full clip.
He then shows an out-of-context screenshot that was from a private conversation as a way to frame me as a pedo. And oh boy, do I have a great story about this one. Basically, after Mushroom Girl did her responses to me, apparently she wanted to get a DM with me and discuss the topics. I decided to do so because I thought maybe, just maybe, we could see some sort of middle ground.
Oh my god, another attempt to find a middle ground. In fact, this is outside of the timestamps that Coda gives. This being at 24 minutes 22 seconds and Coda's timestamp starting at 24 minutes and 26 seconds. I don't want to call it dishonesty, but damn, this does not look good.
At first, the GCs started poorly. I had to play Manzai Birds regarding Edge, knowing that Mushroom Girl would take it out of context. So I just let him see himself out of the GC. So then it was just me and Mushroom Girl. So one of my explanations was that often lolly can be a harmless outfit for people who struggle with pedophilia. And by that I mean people who realize they have a cognitive fuck-up and want to fix that. MG immediately tries to stick that label on me. I knew what she was trying to do. She was trying to get me to admit to pedophilia, to which I won't because I'm not a pedophile. Her logic to why it wasn't a harmless outlet was because it was easier to find the actual CP, it won't get you in much trouble, and lolicons are more accepted in society than people who hurt real children. Which, as you can see, doesn't explain the issue in the slightest. If anything, the first one is kind of a good thing. She just reiterates her point and doesn't explain it in the slightest. I tell her to elaborate, to which she claims it encourages raping children. I point out the obvious by informing her that adults should know that raping children is bad. She tries to claim that children get raped regardless. Yes, because child molesters know what they are doing is wrong, they just don't care. I point out the fact that child molesters fuck kids regardless of lollies involved. She somewhat agrees, but makes the it's illegal argument. Just because something is illegal doesn't mean it's immoral. She claims it feeds into pedophiles, which, again, I already countered. She continues to imply that I'm a pedo afterwards, and then I said this. Now you can see that I'm obviously not in the wrong for this.
Carmen was saying that she was arguing with a bad faith actor and simply said something strange while dealing with someone who she felt was being unreasonable. In fact, despite this being on your examples of things Carmen doesn't explain, she goes on to explain even more about why she said it, how Mushroom Girl clearly didn't care, and how this is all just one giant fight over a poorly worded Discord message.
What I was trying to say, that if I was a pedo, then I wouldn't be having a normal conversation with her. Could I have phrased myself better? Yeah, 100%.
She never admits she's wrong, right? If you at least said she only relents on small things, I could give you that I kinda agree. But since you went and said that instead, thanks Coda for making me cross-reference 2 videos and a document. That totally wasn't a pain in the ass.
And overall, a lot of her points are so flimsy that they could be debunked without a second thought.
You may ask, why does this matter? Because Call Me Nil is a pedophile hunter. Answer me this. If I was as much as a threat to children that everyone makes me out to be, would I be inviting a person who hunts pedophiles in my server? Because Nil was and is in my server.
Now I'm watching from the monitor in the other room as he walks in, and something strikes me. He looks familiar. I couldn't put my finger on it. And it dawns on me that this is a fellow I had met on the commuter train years ago. Knew his name. He was in real estate. And here he is in our kitchen trying to hook up with a 13-year-old boy.
Yeah, I mean, Chris Hansen is actually, I know him, he's a friend of mine. I commuted on the train for years. And that's more of an embarrassment than anything.
I get ya. Sometimes pedophile hunters know pedophiles. But do you want to know a based and red-pilled fact that makes this comparison the worst thing ever?
The thing CarmenRider gets called a pedophile for is publicly on display in her server, so why would she invite a pedophile hunter into her server, aka the evidence?
That'd be a self-report if I ever saw it.
This is the most confusing version of the most dangerous game I've ever seen.
You could also note, of course, that Carmen's quote, pedophilia, while not fully on display, can at least be showcased vaguely on her channel through admitting she's into age play, unlike this person who was doing it privately. Basically, there's 2 levels this comparison is stupid on. Oh, and to quickly clear up the age play thing, I mean like using age play as a way to justify lolicon, and using age play as something she herself likes. Basically opening people to connect the dots if they really wanted to come up with something.
Overall, I find this video really telling. Carmen is shown to be unwilling to listen to criticism here. She'll find any out, any excuse, any reason to not listen, regardless of how much of a stretch it actually is. And frankly, It's getting to be too much at this point. How can anyone take a critic seriously when that critic can't take criticism themselves? I'm not even saying you need to spread your cheeks and accept every criticism, but Jesus Christ, when you can't even accept small criticisms, that really says a lot.
No, I love who's saying this, and the fact that it's on Kumo's channel in the same video with that damage control heavy mess of a disclaimer at the start and end. Consistency isn't real, just turn off the fucking monitor.
I mean, I could talk about how Neko takes criticism, but not only would that be a cheap shot, I've already done that.
Alright, so once again, I've never called for Carmen's cancellation. I've never once stated that I wanted Carmen to get fired from any jobs they get. I never once stated I wanted Carmen removed from society. I never once stated that I wanted Carmen's life to be made a living hell.
Yeah, you never said you wanted her life to be a living hell. You only said that you wanted to put her head in an oven.
I mean, your life can't be a living hell if it's over.
I never once said that I wanted CarmenRider to be deplatformed.
This is the second CarmenRider video in a row that Kumo's made that had this video where I call you a pedophile isn't supposed to cancel you. Just own up at this point. Beats pussyfooting around your goals.
That's the thing. I would have so much more respect for you at this point if you just said you were trying to drive Carmen off the internet. I wouldn't agree with that, but at least I'd think you were being honest with your end goals. Instead, I think of you as nothing more than, well, dishonest.
I also want to say that I had absolutely nothing to do with EMP's raid on your Discord server. The only time I've ever interacted with this person was on a Communist Creeper video where I commented regarding Communist Creeper months before I even knew of your existence, Carmen. Maybe EMP's a fan of the channel, but he's not one of my lackeys.
Remember Septi? It's your fault, Kumo. According to your video, you're responsible. It's all your fault. Cooperate, you salted snails!
But this video concludes that CarmenRider is an irredeemable dickbag, right? And CarmenRider, don't make things worse for you than they already are. I heard you say you were gonna make a dedicated video to me. Honestly, your grave is past 6 feet deep. I wouldn't dig it any deeper if I was you.
So you'll call her a pedo, someone who doesn't listen, but she can't respond because she's digging her own grave deeper. Okay, I've been holding off on saying it, but genuinely fuck off.
Also, gotta love the Kafka trap. Carmen can't respond to defend herself because then she's wrong. And obviously, if she doesn't respond, that's evidence that she couldn't even defend her positions. So, therefore, you're always right no matter what.
Without further ado, be sure to share this video with anyone you think that might like it. Subscribe, and if you want to leave a dislike, why don't you go ahead and leave a angry comment and tell me just how great CarmenRider's dick tastes.
Ah, of course. Everyone who dislikes this video is a Carmen fanbrat. Well, by that logic, why don't you write me some good paragraphs on how much of a legend Fry is? That pretty much concludes everything that's worth covering, and would it be nice to call it painful? Let me just go segment by segment, discounting the disclaimers and, rank them as well, because I think that's the best way to get my thoughts across. I'll put Kumo's at the very bottom at 6th, because good lord, as much as I hate Getsus's let's call it what it is, blatant transphobia, I think I hate false allegations that are enough to ruin someone's life more. It reeks of harmful levels of not researching and is the perfect example of claims being made by jabbering drunks who don't know what the terms they're using even mean. Also, a bit redundant since I mentioned this video earlier, but Getsus can go at 5th because his segment is a whole pile of nothing, just transphobia and boob physics. 4th is Septi. Septi's circular ideologies are not well thought out and are extremely disturbing. To be blunt, they come off as totalitarian. 3rd can go to Coda for not even understanding her own arguments and having some frustrating points. It frustrated me more than Septi's, but I have to ask, would I rather be disgusted or infuriated? And I choose the latter. 2nd can go to Naze, which is insane given how he threw vague buzzwords into the ether with very little to back it up. He's only at this spot because he had the drawback of assuming everybody else would do a good job, so it's not all on him. And then finally, Oranges goes at the top because his section is the only one that's actually fucking tolerable. And hey, it was actually funny. Shame it's only a minute long given it was easily the best part. So I have one last question for just Kumo and Kumo alone.
Was this all Vortex's fault?
I don't really have much to add to what my co-op partner said, but I am going to say that as the person who's actually editing this video, and who has had to go through various technical issues, including my own microphone breaking and me needing to get a new one, I just want to say that this video is absolutely painful on every level. The vast majority of points are either bouncing back and forth between fractal wrongness and so little of an argument I can't even consider it wrong. It does not reach the level of being wrong. This video feels like I am watching a bunch of people who hate CarmenRider just tell me they hate CarmenRider for a little bit, at best. At worst, which is most of the video, they are flimsy accusations backed up with basically no evidence. And these accusations are of genuinely serious issues, such as pedophilia. This is one of the worst videos I have ever seen. No doubt in my mind. Good night, and good luck. So, now that the commentary is done, what do you want to do?
I don't know, you want to go try to forget that this thing ever existed?
That's what I planned on doing anyway, so sure.